Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, July 23rd, and this is Confessions of a Celebrity Bodyguard.
Say goodbye to Hollywood. Say goodbye, my baby. Say goodbye to Hollywood. Say goodbye, my baby.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 6. We're actually into the sixth episode of Confessions of a Celebrity Bodyguard. Thanks to everybody for listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and watching the YouTube channel. I do recommend watching it because I show pictures and stuff. Um, we've still got a little bit to go. We're not into the Jimmy Kimmel Live show yet, which the late night show where I worked for a couple of years. I'm going to be sharing a lot of stories about that. Some of the best times of my life. Met some of my best friends, or I should say, one of my best friends in the world there. And then, of course, I did some work with CSI Miami before wrapping up my 11 years as a Hollywood or down in Hollywood being a celebrity bodyguard. I want to go back a little bit at the beginning of this podcast right now because I was going through my journal and I noticed an entry. And even though had already talked about Warner Brothers Studios in I think episode 4 and 5, um, this entry that I made, I was reading it, and I want to correct a couple things, and then it's a little bit more detailed about my first day at the lot there. This is 2003, by the way, September 28, 2003. I put this entry, and I was telling you about a documentary on John Lennon that they were showing at the private theater on the movie studio lot there, the SJR Theater. It actually was a documentary about George Harrison, so I need to correct that just so I'm being accurate. And plus, it bugs me that I got it wrong. But I knew it was the Beatles, so that's all right. But let me read this to you because this is an interesting entry in the journal. I want to read it to y'all real quick because it's kind of interesting. And again, this is my very first day on the lot at Warner Brothers Studios. So it says here, let's see. I worked a private screening last week on the lot at our SJR Theater. It was a documentary on the life of George Harrison. What a night for me. I was posted at the entrance of the theater where the red carpet ended, so I saw everyone coming up close and in person. The limos were brought in through Gate 4 and routed down New York Street to the theater entrance where Mary Hart from Entertainment Tonight. You remember Mary Hart, Entertainment Tonight? Some of you probably remember her. So she was there to interview these people and cover the event. She was set up at the podium to interview arriving guests. The first to arrive was the Harrison family, George Harrison's family. The family followed by actress Rosanna Arquette, one of my favorites. A lot of people know David Arquette, they know Patricia Arquette, but Rosanna Arquette is definitely one of my favorites, and she's still around. So she came. A few minutes later, Mr. Gary Shandling followed her onto the red carpet, arriving in a gray suit. Gary Shandling was a hilarious comedian. I loved him a lot. And of course, he's passed away way too soon, in my opinion. But that was pretty cool. I forgot about mentioning him. So that's why I wanted to read this to you. I told you about Meg Ryan coming in and didn't want to do the red carpet, so I had to take her around a private area. I cover that in this entry. A few minutes later, Andy Summers from the Police, the rock group The Police, he arrived. And then one of my favorite musical artists, Jackson Browne. And Jackson Browne is definitely, for you younger people, if you don't know who Jackson Browne is, one of his most popular songs is Running on Empty, Running On, Running Blind. He sang that song, and it's played on the radio all the time. So Jackson Browne was there. I thought that was pretty cool. As the limos continued to arrive, I stood at my post and greeted the likes of Jeff Lynne. Jeff Lynne was from the band ELO, which is from my era. So that was pretty cool. Tom Petty, Kid Rock, and Sheryl Crow. So it wasn't the first time I was around Sheryl, obviously. And if that wasn't enough, last to arrive, none other than Sir Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. And I did talk about that in the past episodes. Paul was with his newly pregnant wife. Ringo was with an old actress that I remembered immediately by the name of Barbara Bach. Barbara Bach used to be in a lot of films, and they did date for quite a while, her and Ringo. Paul McCartney was extremely nice and looked absolutely great in person. Just as everyone got inside the theater, one more small figure was coming toward me down the carpet, and there she was, little Yoko Ono. So that's pretty cool because I'd forgotten about Yoko being there, and she's a tiny little thing. And that would be what is now known as the first night working at the Warner Brothers studio lot. Fast forward a week to the past Friday night, I had to work in audience control for the taping of Friends. This was a big deal as this is the final season of the show, and I talked about that in one of the former podcasts. Final season of that sitcom. On this night, I was posted all day at 3rd Street and E Avenue between stage 24, where Friends is taped, and stage 26. Most of my day was spent directing the audience members where to line up before entering the sound stage for the live taping. During this 12-hour day, I watched the hustle and bustle of grips, crew people, and all kinds of folks on golf carts and bicycles and trucks moving about as it was Friday on the lot, and Fridays were always really busy on the Warner Brothers lot. We taped a lot of shows on Fridays. We taped Everybody Loves Raymond. We taped What I Like About You, 2.5 Men, starring Charlie Sheen and John Cryer, which I talked about. And then we also shot a couple dramas there, The West Wing, of course, which I covered, ER, Gilmore Girls, and a show called The Practice. So Fridays were crazy on the lot. Anyhow, I saw Lauren, the lead actress from Gilmore Girls, several times going back and forth on her bicycle from wardrobe back to the lot to shoot. She was always very sweet, which she was. She actually signed a script for my little brother for me one time, which I thought was very nice of her, Lauren Graham. At lunch, I saw John Cryer walk past me with a sandwich, heading back to stage 26, where he did 2.5 Men. At some point thereafter, craft service began setting up next to stage 26 from the Friends and started making burgers and so forth. About 20 minutes later, I watched actor Keanu Reeves come out of his trailer to grab a hamburger, and it was very cool seeing him in person. And I make a note here that he was on the lot shooting a movie called The Constantine, which I kind of covered that in the prior episodes, talking about checking their offices and stage for a while there. So that was the first time I think I actually got a glimpse of him prior to all the other things I did with him later. Let's see. By the time midnight rolled around, I was ready for bed, but the cast of Friends was still shooting. After 16 scenes, they wrapped up, and now we had to get the studio audience out and off the lot. After the lot was cleared, I was waiting to be relieved when Jennifer Aniston came out, got into her silver Range Rover, looked over at the group of us security guys and said, "See you guys Monday," and smiled at us. A few seconds later, Matt LeBlanc came out, jumped into his Porsche, and flashed us a peace sign. Matt LeBlanc was hella cool. Really, really cool guy, and he had this really sick-ass Porsche. And he used to get on a little bit through the studio as he was going through the gate. We'd always laugh about that. Let's see, who is this? He drove toward the gates and headed off the lot. Courtney Cox was still inside the stage with her husband, David Arquette, who arrived earlier to wait for her. David Schwimmer and Matthew Perry were also still inside the stage when I left for the night. Monday night, I will be back on the lot for a screening in our SJR Theater of the Clint Eastwood film, Mystic River. Clint directs this film starring Sean Penn, Kevin Bacon, and Tim Robbins. Don't know who will be there yet, but it will be fun. If you have ever wondered what it's like to work on the lot of one of the biggest motion picture studios in the world, these last 4 pages of my entries should tell you. I just wanted to share that entry with you because as I was going through the journal again, making notes for my podcast, I'm like, wow, I need to read that one to him because it's pretty interesting for our first day on the studio lot, right? So super cool stuff. Just wanted to get that out there and get it done with. Let's pick up where we left off last week. We were talking about the Dean Martin Beach House out in Malibu, and I was talking about doing Jeremy Piven's birthday there. We also did a thing with Rosario Dawson. Did a party there for her, and I don't think it was her birthday. It was some event she was doing to raise money and whatnot. Um, but me and her, I think, were the first ones to arrive at that beach house before all the other guests came and stuff. And again, that beach house, if you didn't see it last week, I'll throw another picture up on YouTube. Very similar to what this one was right there. In fact, that might even be it. When I looked it up, that's what I found. So very cool. Very cool to meet Rosario Dawson. Huge fan of hers. And what a beautiful, sweet, sweet lady she was. I have nothing but good things to say about her. A couple weeks after that, the next party we were going to do over there was for the model Molly Sims. Molly, I'm going to throw a picture up in case you don't know who she is. There's Molly Sims right there. What a sweetheart she was. So she also was very kind. She had an event there. She had all these people there, and she had a bikini on, and she really wanted to go down to the beach and stuff. And the thing you have to understand about Malibu is the beaches uh, are covered with paparazzi most of the time because they know that the stars live there or do things there in Malibu, and they want to get the pictures of those shots and stuff. So the annoying thing with this was I had guys out on the beach, as I told you in the last episode. I had guys in the front of the house. I had myself as a rover on the inside and up on the deck and so forth. But Molly wanted to go down to the beach, so I said, "Okay, I'll go with you." And went down to the beach, and I looked just a little ways down the beach, and I noticed that it looks like a family. I mean, it actually is a man, a woman, and little kids with beach towels and an umbrella. You wouldn't think anything of it until the son of a bitch pulled up a huge camera with this long lens on it, right? And he's trying to take shots of Molly. And so that's the kind of crap they do. I mean, they try and disguise themselves as a regular family so they can get that shot and get paid a lot of money for it. So what was interesting was Molly was bending over, putting her towel down, and I saw her kind of look from the corner of her eye at the paparazzi guy a distance away. And she said to me, "Is he trying to take a picture of my ass?" And I said, "I think he is." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to block him." So every time she bent over to adjust her towel, I stood right behind her so he couldn't get that shot. And she was laughing and thought that was great. But I really enjoyed doing that party with her. And one of the cool things that happened to me when I was there, let me get a sip of my good stuff there. One of the cool things that happened to me there was I was looking down the beach while I was out there with her, watching for paparazzi, and I saw this couple coming toward me with a little dog and stuff. And they were throwing the ball for this little dog, and the dog was chasing it. But here's the thing: I'm a movie buff. I'm an actor buff, actress buff, music buff. So I know a lot of these actors. I know their movements and the way they are, right? Their mannerisms and so forth. So I'm standing there, and I'm looking down the beach, and I see the couple with the dog, and I'm like, that looks like Leonardo DiCaprio, but it probably isn't. And I had never met Leo in my whole time in Hollywood. Uh, but as they got closer and closer and closer, it turned out, of course, it was. I knew it was him because his mannerisms, the way he walks, I've watched every one of his movies. What's Eating Gilbert Grape? You can see a lot of his mannerisms that he still has today. But it was him and Giselle Bundchen, and she was a model, of course, that he was with for a couple of years. And there's a shot of him if you're watching YouTube right now, and their little dog. So that was kind of cool because I actually got to see him in person, and I thought, oh man, I just got to see Leo. That's pretty cool. So they broke up, and obviously after a little bit of time and stuff. But the beach house parties were a lot of fun. We did it for a couple of weeks. It was always a different event, a different celebrity hosting it and whatnot. So that was kind of fun. Now we're going to talk about some MTV reality stars, and this might be interesting to some of you that remember the old shows like what was it, Laguna Beach, The Hills. Uh, there were a couple of them, and they were very popular at the time. I'm going to throw up a picture of my placard from this event. So here's the live from MTV The Hills season premiere, and my little placard that me and my guys had to wear. So we had to do this beach thing with the cast, and I don't even like to call them the cast because they're not actors, right? and the show's scripted, of course. So we did this thing with them, and it was out at the beach, and we had to have a cast and everybody there. And I wasn't really sure what to expect, but the cast of that particular show, and if you're watching YouTube, you can see there's Heidi, Lauren Conrad, and I think that's Adriana Partridge in the back. Didn't deal with Adriana too much. I will tell you that I liked Lauren Conrad was pretty cool. She was down to earth and nice and not too snooty and stuff. But that other Heidi girl, not so much. And I'm going to talk about her right now because I got stuck. My boss said, I want you to hang out with Spencer Pratt and Heidi. And I'm like, ah, man. And I didn't even like them already. That was before the show and everything. And I had dealt with them at a couple other events where I had to do security for them. So if you don't know who they are, I'll throw a picture up. There they are. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Douchebag, king of the douchebags. Both of these people, I could not stand them. Spencer Pratt thought he was Robert De Niro or something. He thought he should have just had the world in his hands. He was a total punk, and she was an arrogant, stuck up, entitled little rich girl. So when it comes to these little reality stars like this, it really bugs me. And a couple of those chicks came on to Jimmy Kimmel Live when I was there. So I had to escort them in a couple of times. One of them, I think, was Lauren Conrad. And again, she wasn't so bad. But Spencer Pratt and Heidi, I had to spend a whole day watching those dorks. And I just want you to know, douche bags, both of them. Not cool at all. And I think they're still floating around doing something. I don't know what. So a lot of those MTV things we did, and they weren't very fun, to be honest with you, because those kids, what were they famous for? For being on scripted reality shows. It just annoyed me. Just didn't like that at all. But of course I did it because I got paid for it. Moving on, though, I did a really cool party in Hollywood one night for Kathy Najimy's 50th birthday party. I still have a little poker chip. I wish I could have found it before I did the podcast, but it's a little poker chip with her picture on it. It says Happy Birthday, Kathy, 50th or whatever. Kathy Najimy is a great actress. She's been in Sister Act. She's the funny nun. She's really, really a cool lady. It was her 50th birthday, and they had this birthday party for her at the A&M Records in Hollywood there. I'm going to show you a picture of it there. So you see the outside gate there. So that's A&M Records. That's where her 50th birthday party was. There's a huge stage in there and lots of other cool stuff. This studio, the A&M studio, was actually owned by Herb Alpert from Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. Herb Alpert had that studio in that building for years, and then eventually sold it to another. Was it Jim Henson's production, Muppet Guy, and I'll show you something on that in a second. So it was kind of interesting because that place had a lot of history in it, right? So that studio was originally owned by Charlie Chaplin. And what's super cool about this place is if you walk around in there and look around, there's a place in the cement there that actually has Charlie's feet in the cement and signed by him. So it was originally called Charlie Chaplin Studios, which I always thought was really, really cool. I mean, what kind of history are we talking about here? That's crazy, right? And not just that, but other things. That studio had been there for years. I lived right up the street in an apartment. So I passed that place every day of my life, driving around. But it was weird because I found out when I was there working there that the very first episode of I Love Lucy was shot there. And then they went over to Desilu and did their thing. But the very first episode, I'm told, was shot at the Charlie Chaplin studios there, which later was, of course, A&M Records. For some of you older people might remember the old show Perry Mason. That whole show was shot also at that same place where we did her birthday party. So as I told you before, when Herb Alpert sold it, Jim Henson bought that place, and it became Jim Henson's Productions. And if you're watching YouTube, you can see Kermit the Frog on top of the building there. And that's the way it looked when I was there. It was A&M for a little while when I first got to Hollywood. And then later, Kermit got put up there and Jim Henson took over the place. What's interesting about this place is that gate right there that you're seeing if you're watching YouTube. So one night after, I believe it was a Grammy Awards, when they recorded "We Are the World," Quincy Jones's project, um, everybody after the award show was dropped off in limousines and came through that gate, and they actually recorded "We Are the World" in that big stage in there. And of course, you can, if you're watching YouTube, look at all those people in that picture. So I know everyone remembers "We Are the World, We Are the Children." It was a huge thing. They had everybody, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson's in there, Huey Lewis and the News, Cyndi Lauper. I mean, they were in there all night recording that. And I just thought it was kind of cool talking about the history of A&M Records and that location where we did Kathy's birthday party. So Kathy's birthday party was kind of big, lots of celebrities. Two of them that just kind of stood out to me was Bette Midler and her husband as they came in the door, walked right past me. Always enjoyed her. I've actually seen her stage show a couple times. Pretty interesting, pretty fun. Great lady, little bitty old thing as well. And then a couple times during the night, Matthew Perry would come out and smoke right next to me, and I did not speak to him. He looked honestly, he looked detached, um, little bit of anxiety, like maybe he just didn't want to be there with all those people, but he had to go and make an appearance. Um, he wasn't rude. I just felt like maybe he was sad. You know what I mean? So that is kind of sad in light of how everything turned out for him. And I thought he was a brilliant comedic actor. Uh, if you don't remember, I was telling you Kathy Najimy was the funny nun. I'm going to show you a quick picture on YouTube. There she is to the left there. Hilarious. Great in that movie. Love, love, love her. And I enjoyed doing that event for her. And plus, again, it was at the old A&M Records, which, had so much history in there. It was kind of nuts. Another private party that I did was at Christmas time. I got assigned to just me. I didn't have a crew. They said, Chuck, we want you to go. Nia Vardalis's house is in Hancock Park. She's having a private Christmas party, and we want you to go and do the security and cover the front door and just kind of escort the guests up to the house. Well, it just so happened that night that it was raining like hell in Hollywood. I mean, it was coming down. And Nia Vardalos, if you don't know, she's the actress from the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Here's what I want to tell you about her. She is the most amazingly sweet lady I've ever met in my life. She was very nice to me. She was concerned about me being out in the rain. I had an umbrella and stuff, and she said, "No, I don't want you getting all wet and stuff." So she said, "As soon as all the guests are in, I want you to come in the house with us." So I thought that was super sweet. So Hancock Park, by the way, Hancock Park, it is a neighborhood in LA that a lot of celebrities live in. So she lived in there. Muhammad Ali's house was in there. John Malkovich. There's a slew of people that live in Hancock Park. Danny Elfman, of course, is married to Bridget Fonda. They all lived in there too. And I did a lot of things in Hancock Park. And when we get to the CSI stuff, we shot CSI Miami at a couple mansions in there. But anyway, I did this party for Nia. It's raining like hell. I got my umbrella and everything, and I'm waiting for all these guests to arrive. And the first guest that arrived for me to go down to the curb and get them in this pouring rain turns out to be Tom Hanks and his wife, Rita Wilson. But she also had her mother. And I think I've talked about Tom Hanks before, but here's what I'll tell you about that man. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he is completely polite, is the nicest person in the world. And that kind of made me happy because I love Tom Hanks. America loves Tom Hanks. Come on, Forrest Gump. And to actually meet him and see what a gentleman he was just a total treat for me. So he had his wife and he had his mother-in-law with him. It's pouring down rain. I got one umbrella and I'm like, Mr. Hanks, here, let me try and cover. He goes, no, 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 no. He goes, don't worry about me. Just get the ladies. And I'm like, okay. So put the umbrella over his mother-in-law and Rita, and we make our way up to the front door, and Nia lets him in and go in there. I saw so many people at that party that night. It was tripping me out because You know, when you watch shows like Seinfeld and you're a movie buff and you watch movies all the time and stuff, you see all these people that are character actors that have been around for years. And it was just interesting for me to be standing in the foyer of her home, her beautiful home, and seeing these people sitting on the couch talking, drinking together, and stuff like that. So definitely one of the more fun nights that I had. The other guest that we had there as well was Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens. He came with Cassandra Peterson. Now, Cassandra Peterson, if you don't know, is Elvira, and there's a picture on YouTube of them right there, and she's all made up right there. But this is what she looks like in real life. Very nice lady. I dealt with her at Jimmy Kimmel. She came to do a thing as Elvira. And when she came in, we put her into a little trailer outside to get ready. When she came out in that full Elvira garb, I was just like, oh man, that's what I'm talking about. It's interesting to see these people when they do these characters because she's a very nice lady. All she wanted was a little glass of wine while she was getting ready. And then she came out all Elvira out, which I thought was super cool. So I loved her. And I love the fact that she was with Paul Rubin. They were very good friends and they went around Hollywood to a lot of events together and stuff. So that was a fun night. And then, of course, at the end of the night, it's still pouring down rain. And I'm going to share this little story with you because sometimes you don't realize what celebrities are friends of other celebrities. Like you wouldn't, sometimes you'd be like, wow, I didn't even imagine that those two people would be good friends like that. But this particular story is about Ricky Lake and Alanis Morissette. Of course, Alanis Morissette, the rock star, and Ricky Lake had her own TV show, was in a million movies and stuff like that. So I loved these two, and I loved them being there that night because as they came up to the front door and they were going to leave, they both had on very expensive shoes. And I told them, I said, hey, ladies, it's like pouring outside. And they're like, oh, okay, no problem. I go, I got an umbrella or whatever. So I opened the door. They go to step out, and then Ricky Lake goes, wait a minute. And she looks at Alanis and she goes, these fucking shoes are so expensive. I don't even know if we should get them wet. And she's like, you're right. Let's just barefoot it to the car, whether our feet get wet or not. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, are you serious? And they're like, no, these are expensive. I'm not about to run out to the car in these pumps or whatever. So both the ladies took off their shoes. They're sitting there barefoot, their beautiful dresses or whatever. And I ran with them under the umbrella out to the curb, got them into their car. They thanked me and they drove away. But it was one of those things where you see people together and you're just like, oh, that was great. Great little story. So I really dug seeing that and seeing that they were just great friends like that. So that was a fun night. Love Nia Vardalos. Will always love her. Her and her husband showed me so much hospitality while I was in their home working that event for them. And it was a blast for me because I got to see all kinds of people. So this is episode 6. The next one is episode 7. And we'll be moving on to Jimmy Kimmel Live, which will be pretty interesting. And the podcast will not go away. When I am done with my journals from the celebrity bodyguarding thing, the podcast is going to continue. It'll be renamed. We're going to do some fun stuff. I have some plans to bring on some very interesting guests. I'm going to poke fun at some things, stupid things, because the world is stupid right now, right? So, I'm not going anywhere. We'll change it up a little bit, but we got a little bit more to go. I got quite a few stories from Jimmy Kimmel Live and more about CSI Miami before we jump out of that. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Thank you, Spotify, again, for all the platform stuff. Thank you, David Lowe, for helping me hook this podcast up from the beginning. Sarah Strauch for my logo and my cups and all that cool stuff. And I love you guys. I hope you're enjoying it. We got more to go, and we're coming back. Have a great week, everybody.